All right, so good evening, and thank you all for joining the Shreve Memorial Library Virtual Book Club. Tonight's discussion is going to cover Karen Thompson Walker's book, The Dreamers, and we are joined by the Books and Brats Book Club. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jackie to start the discussion.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm from the main library downtown. And this wasn't a book I chose for us. Kayla and Paige chose it for us. Kayla's here too. Hey, Kayla.
Hi, Jackie. Yeah, we chose that. I think it was back in January. It was before COVID was a big thing and was supposed to discuss it in April, and it got postponed. And so
there we go.
And it's a lot more relevant than it was then.
So just going around the room, how many people have actually read The Dreamers? I have. Anybody else?
30 pages. I have about 30 pages left.
Okay. So what I just want to make sure, because I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
Well, I've read the summary, so I know what it's about, but I haven't really dived into the book yet.
Okay. So just to give you a little background on the book, if you haven't had a chance to look at it at all, The Dreamers is about not a pandemic, but an outbreak of a mysterious, brand new, never been seen before disease. Does that sound familiar to everyone?
Yes.
But instead of giving you a respiratory problem, this illness causes you to slip into an unwakeable sleep. So you fall asleep, and it's highly contagious. And it starts off in a college dorm and makes its way through this remote college town. So one thing that's different about this than our pandemic is that it is localized. It is contained within this small town. It's a college town, but it's like, I forget where it is. Kayla, is it in California or Colorado?
It is in the fictional town of Santa Laura, California.
California. Okay. Yeah. So it's in the mountains of, yeah, that's right. It's California. See, I've already,
it's about 70 miles outside of Los Angeles.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but I gotta say, this might be my favorite book I've read this year. That's fiction. Really? I really, I mean, it's a quick read. I identified a lot. So the story is told in third person, and it follows some college students, it follows a college professor, it follows a psychiatrist or psychologist from Los Angeles. It follows a young married couple who are college professors. So it's following different people in the town who don't really have connections to each other, but, they wind up having sometimes more meaningful connections, sometimes just passing connections to each other during the course of this outbreak. And more and more people start falling asleep, and you think of sleep as being, benign, restful, but it is so incredibly dangerous in this story. So imagine, for instance, the couple, they have a 17-day-old baby, and at any moment themselves or the baby could fall asleep. Then who takes care of the baby or them? Because once you fall asleep, like I said, you don't wake up. So there gets to be this point, just like with COVID, where they're spiking. So there's so many cases that people are dying from just because of the healthcare system, overwhelming the first responders. So the guy with the baby, his mother doesn't live there. She lives in the Northeast. And so they develop a system that he's going to call every day to let her know that he's okay. And one day he got so busy with the baby that he didn't call. So his mother called the 911 saying that there was potentially somebody who had succumbed to the sleeping sickness, and that there's a newborn baby that needs to be cared for. And the police didn't show up for 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And when they show up, they're like, we're here for the newborn baby. And they're like, it was a mistake. It was a false alarm. And so that's how the story goes, you know, and that's kind of the nature, as we all see, of the pandemic. You remember how critical things were in New York when, you know, thousands of people were dying, and some of it would have been preventable had they had the resources to handle it. And so that's what's happening in the story, just an overwhelming of the resources. Kayla, what are your thoughts?
Well, the ones that really I was really captured by, the two little girls. There's these two little girls that are home alone, basically, because their father is this kind
Well,
of,
he succumbed.
yes, but he became ill very early in the story, but he's one of those doomsday people that
he's a prepper.
He's been stockpiling stuff. She's making the kids count the water, let them know that they don't get to keep their pets if something happened because they can't feed them. And so these girls have been groomed their entire life for this to happen. But what throws a wrench in everything is their father gets sick and they have to suddenly make do. I think they're like 10 and 11 years old, and they have to, one, pretend they're not in their house because they have a big X on their house that shows that they're sick, because they don't want to go to foster care or get taken away. But little do they know that the whole town is just basically collapsed around them, and nobody really has time to, look for unattended children. So as a mom, I was just like, oh my gosh, those poor babies.
Lot of scary moments. Yeah. See, I'm a new mom, so I was really identifying with the couple with the newborn baby, and they're stressed because of the newborn baby, and then the added stress of knowing that there was this illness and they were in quarantine. The whole town becomes quarantine in the story. Just another element that's so interesting to me about the story is just kind of like the nature of sleep and the nature of dreaming, because you find out during the course of the story that the people who fall asleep, some people eventually do wake up. I don't want to ruin too much of the story, but they have these tremendous dreams. Some people dream of an entire life, like where they've had jobs and gotten married and they've had careers and they're elderly and that they have grandchildren, and then they wake up and they're not. And it's like incredibly detailed, vivid dreams. And some folks have like a profound difficulty from like waking up from their dream because their dreams were so real. So that's an interesting aspect of the story, is because these dreams, it's not just that you're unconscious, it's that you're going through this whole experience in top of being unconscious. In the meantime, your body is in mortal peril because you're not eating, you're not drinking, who knows where you are. Early in the story, you learn of a guy who catches it at a gas station on his way to a camping trip by himself, and he falls asleep in his tent and he dies because no one knows he's there.
Oof.
I know, it's a good book.
That's like one of my fears. I always tell people, like, if I ever die, I want people to know that I'm dead. I want them to know where I am. So
right
that's
away.
Like, whoa, wait a minute. I can't die in a tent where no one knows where I am. No, it's terrifying.
I know, and that's what's so scary. It's because when we go to sleep at night, there's this vulnerability, and we all accept it. Every single day we just like go to sleep, but we're completely vulnerable, right, to anything. And and so this story kind of plays on that kind of fear, where anything can happen to you. You go to sleep and then you've suddenly, oh gosh. Yeah, I was thinking there's so many stories in this story of all these different people. I don't want to, I'm trying really hard not to give it all away.
I might give it all away. I want to know all about it.
You
I'm
want
one
to
of those
know?
people. I'm like, tell me all about it.
Well, okay. So, Kayla, you're mostly done with the book. Who are your favorite characters?
Matthew, I think he's
Matthew.
he's kind of a jerk college guy, but
He's not a jerk. He's just
you learn why he's that way. He stays to himself, but he's very kind of aggressive, but it kind of tones down. But as you see him later in the story, and the way it spreads too is basically 26 kids are from a college dorm where the first person got sick. They were put in quarantine, and there was a fire that happened near the town, and so everybody's freaking out over the fire. The kids thought that they were gonna be left in this gym to die, so they all escape. That's how it spreads. And then these two of the college kids ended up staying together, and they're the ones that are going around the town and breaking into houses, making sure there's no one in there
for people.
sleeping. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And they're just like the heroes of the story at the point where I am, like the Humane Society. They went there and they could hear the animals inside, so they break in and let all the animals out so that way they can fend for themselves. And it's just really stuck with me how this guy, he goes into these houses knowing that there's a chance that he's going to find something very terrible, and he still does it anyways because it's the right thing to do. And then you see kind of his backstory and you're like, okay, well, that really makes sense.
So Matthew and May's the other. It's May, right, Kayla?
Yeah, it's May. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Matthew and May, they're kind of the jumping off point. Actually, May is really the jumping off point of the story. It's her roommate who is the first victim in the story. And yeah, so they're in this position where they're seeing the whole town kind of collapse around them. And there's first responders, there are police, there are EMS, there's volunteer nurses coming in from out of state. There's all this going on, but it's still not enough. And so Matthew and May spend all day, every day and night walking around town, looking at what needs to be done and trying to help people, because the community hasn't pulled together people have become afraid of each other because they don't want to catch the illness. Nobody knows how it's communicated. And they're just trying to quarantine in their own private residences. But if you've already been exposed and you wind up falling asleep at home, you could die because nobody's there to care for you, and you can't, or potentially nobody's there to care for you. So they're kind of these heroes in the story. But Matthew, like Kayla was saying, is kind of he's a bit much. He reminds me of a lot of college students you meet when you're like a college freshman. He's quoting Descartes, and he's talking about hypothetical ethical situations. So he's just being really idealistic. He's read all those college freshman textbooks, and he's really embraced this idea about like the greater good or the most good, and how do you make the most good in a situation. And
I have a question. Does the illness stay localized to this one town in California, or does it spread, or is that like
it does pretty much stay localized. There's a few people who get out of town, but they don't get far because they succumb to it. Because
they
fall
get quarantined almost immediately.
Yeah,
like Catherine, the infectious disease doctor. She has a daughter, and her daughter's staying with a babysitter, and she went home to visit a few times. But once they realized how contagious it was, in order to contain it, anybody that you came into contact with was put on quarantine, and they left you there. They brought you your supplies and stuff like that, but there's basically guards around your house, and you're not leaving.
Gotcha.
So it's actually a pretty quick read. Kayla, how big is the book? About 250?
I don't even know if,
Because
let
I
me
have
see.
it on. I had downloaded it to read.
Oh, I have it in my hands. Let me see. Let me turn my car light on. My husband made me go sit in the car because I was talking too loud, but I know y'all would never believe that about me. 299 pages, but it's a super small book.
Yeah.
I
It's
have the
such a quick.
paperback.
Yeah, it's such a quick read, and it's so enjoyable. And it's so. Oh, the thing I wanted to say about the author that I really liked was that she really is good at portraying the college freshman experience.
Oh yeah.
Wouldn't you say that, Kayla? Like those first few chapters when the outbreak is primarily in the dorms. Those the way those kids interact with each other, the way they the things that they prioritize and care about, you know.
Oh yeah, I was very much a Rebecca my freshman year of college.
You were Rebecca.
Yeah, she was she falls into a coma fairly quickly. She gets taken under the wing of these other girls. She was raised very religiously, and she didn't wear makeup. She didn't know how to fix her hair. She was a really sweet girl, but then, the other girls were teaching her these things, and she's getting a little social stuff going on, and met a nice boy. And it's not really a spoiler, but she gets pregnant right before she falls asleep. And so as you're going through the story, this baby's growing inside of her. And I haven't gotten to the end yet, so I don't know how it goes. But the author is talking about like the future of this baby as it's going through the story, about what the baby will look like and what her ears will hear. And it's very lyrical and beautiful. And I really can't wait to get to the end of it. And I hope it doesn't make me angry.
Hold on, I'm gonna close my camera for a second because I want to share my favorite quote from the book, and I gotta.
Oh, I have one too after you.
I bet you we have the same.
I bet it is.
This is how the sickness travels best, through all the same channels as do fondness and friendship and love.
On page 137.
Isn't that such a great quote?
Yeah, I have the same one.
That's awesome.
Such a great quote. So yeah, the people we care about most are the ones that we're most at risk from. From in this case a disease. They're the ones that are going to be the ones that communicate it to you, because you're going to be the ones who are in most close contact. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people have experienced that. I can't imagine. I thankfully haven't personally experienced COVID in my family, but I know of a lot of people who have, and who have given
my
the
sister
illness.
Has it right now.
Oh goodness, Kayla, how's she doing?
Yeah. Okay, I guess we just found out today. So, that's really, I'm just like, that's something.
Well, some people it hits really hard. So, you got to be so careful with it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, what else is there to...
Well, the quote, that we talked about, it came, the passage it's in is talking about a wedding. It's not any of the main characters. It just really just talks about, whoever you're dancing with at the wedding, sharing lipstick, dancing too close, clinking champagne flutes, and, catching the bouquet. These are all people that caught the disease. It was a nurse that got married, and then
so she got in at the hospital.
So yeah, and then that's how it was spread, because of the different people that are at the wedding and then go home, and it just goes to everybody's families. And it really stuck with me, and probably Jackie too. Jackie and I have both gotten married during this pandemic.
We have.
And we weren't able to really have a big thing with our friends and family. It was very, very small, and we just didn't get to celebrate it and do what, we would have done in any other circumstance. So It's just been
just such a great book. It's so interesting. The author has been writing. It took her 4 years to write the book. So definitely not informed at all from COVID. She actually talked about in an interview about a book called Blindness, which was adapted to a film. I don't know if you guys remember that movie. I'm trying to remember who starred in it, but everyone, it's an illness where everyone goes blind, and there's just one woman who, for whatever reason, is immune to the blindness, and it
sounds
spreads.
familiar.
Yeah, it came out maybe 10 years ago or something like that. So
Yeah.
anyway, this book kind of was inspired by that other book. So it kind of speaks to this book about people going blind, and with people falling asleep and dreaming, endlessly dreaming, just one dream rolling into the next dream. And so I thought that was pretty interesting that it was inspired by another book about another pandemic.
I actually just downloaded the book to my phone, and that's like one of the first quotes after you get past the title page. Before you get into chapter 1, it says, "That night the blind man dreamt that he was blind," and it's a quote from Jose Saramago from Blindness.
From Blindness, yeah.
So
Yeah,
like,
so
I just read that. So
Yeah.
I downloaded the book because it sounds really interesting. You guys are not telling me enough about it, so I'm gonna have to read it on my own.
It's a
Reading all
super
these
fast
stories.
read.
it
I
really
mean,
is.
it's
I read it in a day and
so
a half.
easy to get. There's
Pardon?
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying I read it so fast, and I have, like I said, I have a young baby, and I don't usually have much time to read, but I made time for this book because I couldn't put it down. I just kept wanting to know what was going to happen next, and the story has a nice progression between the different characters and their circumstances, and in different ways. I just loved every single character in the story, but definitely the character that or I personally feel the most for is May, the college freshman. So the thing we haven't said about May yet is that she doesn't fit in with the other girls in the dorm. She's shy, and when she doesn't look like them because she's Asian American, and everybody else in this college, apparently everyone in this town, it seems like in the story, is white. So, she's kind of isolated, and no one is like intentionally mean to her, but nobody goes out of their way to befriend her either. So she's just kind of alone in this. And so then they get quarantined, and she's alone with a group of people who just kind of don't ever interact with her. So it's like she's like a ghost in the room. Except
her roommate was kind of not very nice very early on into the book, and when she first came to the college, there's a big cultural problem, and instead of the roommate Kara, who caught it early and then passed in the first couple pages, instead of talking to her roommate about it, she involved other people, and it ended up with May really being isolated, which is not the best way to do things.
Well, remember, they're all supposed to be just 18 years old.
Yeah, well, I'm not as generous as you.
But anyway, so you have this character who, so she's the character I'm most sympathetic to, because I feel like I've had those times in my life, those awkward moments where you wish you were somebody else, that you were more assertive, more confident, did things differently. So she's got all these internal dialogues where she wants to be this other person, but it's just all slipping away from her. Like she talks about her bed sheets, that she got these purple bed sheets because she was going to be a different kind of girl in college than she was in high school. She was going to be the kind of girl that had purple bed sheets. See, it's great. Don't you love this story?
Right.
But she's not that girl, and so now the purple bed sheets like pretty much just mock her because she's thinking of this whole like excitement she had for starting college and being a different person, which is that feeling you get
Mhm.
when you started college, this new you, this adult you who's going off to do this thing. And then it turns out you're still you. You're still the same person you were 3 months ago when you were in high school. And but now you're in this new circumstance, and you're actually at a huge disadvantage because now everything is brand new. And you think it's going to be better, but maybe it's not. And then she gets the illness. The illness kind of comes, and she doesn't get any breaks in the story.
Aw.
I know. She's the character that I feel for the most, because she's very isolated until she meets Matthew.
And do they get along, or are they just forced to get along?
I don't want to ruin it for you.
It's a
Well, I'm gonna read it
gradual
because I've already
thing.
downloaded the book.
He wasn't
Okay.
entirely nice to her at first. He was very stern and gruff with her, especially with the way she was handling things when people in their dorm was falling sick during the first round of their quarantine. And she, of course, like, who would know how to handle a situation where people around you start getting sick? And he wasn't the most he wasn't
Well, he's
as
right. He's self-righteous is
compassionate.
what he
Yes,
is.
he is. And
Yeah.
he wasn't very compassionate with her. And, you know, like, she didn't know if somebody's just sleeping or if they were sick. I mean, that's like that's the recurring thing, is how do you know if they're sick or if they're just asleep? Like with the parts with having a new baby, you got to sleep when the baby sleeps. And how do you know that your spouse is just sleeping, or if they're exhausted, if they're sick? And that's what everybody's dealing with. And Matthew just really is not very nice at the start of the book. And, he really took it out on May.
You know what we haven't talked about, Kayla, is this recurrent theme. I think it's not the primary theme, but I really think it's about the different types of love we have in our lives. So
Yeah.
so Matthew and May become romantically entangled during the course of the story. So you have Matthew and May, you have the married couple, the college professors with the baby. You have the prepper father with his two daughters, and their relationship with each other, and then the two sisters together, because once the father's out of the story and he's asleep, it's about the relationship between the two sisters.
Don't forget about Nathan and Henry.
I was about to get them. We haven't
Yeah.
mentioned Nathan and Henry, which are two college professors. I don't know if I would call them older people.
They're probably late 50s.
No, I thought I would put them in their 60s.
Yeah, maybe late 50s, early 60s, because Nathan has an adult daughter that she's in her 20s, and she's living in San Francisco, and he keeps referring back to him. And apparently he had been married to her mother, and they split up, and then he found Henry and they fell in love. And it talks a lot about their life together too.
Well, but Henry though, so they're at this point in their marriage relationship. I don't know. They don't say whether or not they're married in the story, but anyway, they've been together for decades, and they have this house, and they're both college professors. But he suffers from dementia now, and he's in a nursing home.
Oh, dude, I read it as ALS. I've read it as him.
No. He can't.
Yeah.
He doesn't know who he is or anything.
Yeah, it's never really said. I knew that his mind was going away too, but he couldn't move and stuff either. He was very much.
Oh,
he was in a nursing home. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I misread that.
Yeah.
I thought it was just dementia, but
No.
Okay, so it's not exactly clear what it is, but
Yeah.
he's not himself. And so there's that. And so anyway, the story is about, I think in part also about these just different relationships that people have.
Yeah, and see, Henry also gets the virus, but it doesn't affect people like him, like it affected the people that, the young people that were getting it, the, quote unquote, normal people. There, and it says in the book that there's other people similar to Henry, and it's completely upside down on what happens there.
Yeah, so it's oh gosh, I just like this book so much.
It was great.
That's all I can say. I get the thumbs up. The Books and Brats thumbs up. What would that be? It gets it gets all the dressings. It gets the chili. It gets mustard.
It's the carb your
relish.
enthusiasm. It gets the macaroni and cheese on top too.
The macaroni and cheese on top of the hot dog. It's just a great little book. I really want to read her other novel, and I don't even know what it's about, but she's my favorite author of the year. I don't know if it has to do with the pandemic or not, but I would have loved this book either way. I think that the thing that really got me was, again, the young parents with the first time child.
Yeah, I mean, there's just that human element of it all, and the way she explores the relationships and the treatment of each other, and kind of the good things that everybody was doing. It was really nice to see a lot of the positive in a pandemic, as opposed to, some of what you're seeing on television. So that
Yeah,
was
but I
what
thought
liked
she did a pretty good portrayal of it. I think
absolutely.
Everything
You saw
rang
the
true.
too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything about it, everything about what she wrote it felt realistic. I think she well researched and wrote it. But she's a really good writer as far as like her character development. Her characters are just wonderful. So you get my recommendation. Read the book, The Dreamers.
Well, I've downloaded it, so I will be reading it after I finish the book that I'm reading now.
And I just put it on hold.
I can only do one book at a time.
Good. I win.
Yes, it was a good recommendation. I've already downloaded it. And then it looks like her other book title is The Age of Miracles.
That's what it was called, The Age of Miracles. I'm not even sure what that's about, but I saw that she had written another title, and I was like, well, I've got to read whatever that was.
Yeah, I think that one's kind of a dystopia too, but it's literary dystopia, so it's fancy.
Yes. And let me talk about the author's writing style. She's a quality writer. Like, well, I read you that one quote, which is the best quote from the book, but she's got a wonderful, beautiful writing style. I wasn't too keen at first on, she writes everything in the third person, and I wasn't too keen on that at first, kind of like this background way of, I felt like I wasn't going to be able to get close to the characters, but I was totally wrong. It really worked for the story. But yeah, I guess I have a preference for things to be written in the first person. But third person is works really well for the story. Kayla, you have anything else to add?
I mean, I agree with that. Third person doesn't bother me. First and third, I can take it or leave it. Second person's the one that gets me sometimes, but I'm usually, when I'm reading, I'm more into world building than character development. I don't really care about the character arcs. I want to be in the world, and I want it to be pretty, and I want to know what they're eating.
You want like unicorns?
Oh, I got to have spaceships and dragons and all that stuff. But
potato soup.
Yeah.
Potato soup.
But this, I was surprised on how much I really liked it. If there's a lot of characters, I am very ADD and I lose interest. And I really stuck with this book. I mean, I'm a person, I read like 5 or 6 books at a time, but I kept going back to this, and to see what happens next. And
yeah, for me, I'm the exact opposite. She reads 5, 6 books at a time. I read 1 book every 3 months.
Me too. I feel better. I'm the same way.
Yeah. So for me to finish this book in a day and a half speaks a lot to how good a read. It's a good read, but it's also a quick read. So it's and then I found myself immediately wishing that I had someone I could talk to right then about the book. And then I was like, oh wait, but on November 10th, I can. So that's all I got. I don't know what time is it.
It's about 6:35.
So if anybody else wants to pipe in with it, but that's pretty much all I have to say about the Dreamers.
See, I think there's let me see if there's a guide in the book. Sometimes there is. Let's see. I guess not, because there's just oh, here's the reader's guide. Let me see.
Yeah, but I looked at the reader's guide. It's going to give away too much of the story.
Well, no, here's a good one. How do you think the Dreamers differ from other books about disaster and dystopia? And what does it have in common with those stories?
That book's, that's assuming that I've read a lot of, that's assuming I've read a lot of disaster dystopic stories. I like that this story roots itself in the present, in reality. It's not the far distant future. There aren't space aliens. You know, the whole world hasn't come crashing down. It's just this one small town has this outbreak, and it's a novel disease. And that is not an unusual thing to happen. I mean, well, obviously we know that, but this happens all over the world all the time. These things just pop up, and sometimes they burn themselves out, and sometimes they spread, or sometimes just a handful of people get it and then it's gone, and then it's not seen again for decades. You know, it's very strange how illness works. Mm-hmm. But I like that the story just feels real. It's nothing fantastic or fanciful happens. You know, I kept waiting for someone to, you know, for everyone to start dreaming in unison and speaking of alien language, but it didn't happen. Kayla, what do you think?
More of the disaster and dystopias that I read. I read a lot of speculative fiction. I like horror. I don't read as much as I used to. And during my YA kick, if it was a dystopia, I was all over it. I've probably read well over 100 disaster and dystopia books. And this one is different in that it is like dialed way back. There's no evil government. There's no, you know.
Yeah, no one gets like murdered.
No, I mean, and there's death, and there's some stuff that's not necessarily pretty, but yes, there's the, you know, everything sells out at the grocery store, and where you're having to worry about supplies, but you're not really having to see the scavenging, except for like maybe one part. And because people are coming in, they're bringing food, they're bringing supplies, and it seems a lot more realistic. And now that we've kind of been in the middle of it, I can see where what she wrote is pretty much how it goes down.
Yeah. She did her research.
And yeah, I mean, it's pretty much this book is basically March.
Which is interesting because the book came out before COVID, correct?
Yeah, I think it was January 2019. So she would have written it probably in 2016, 2017. So
it took her 4 years to write it.
Yeah, so then she probably would have started it probably 2012, 2013, and then got it finished, and then went through the whole agent and publishing process. And
she also was pregnant twice during the course of writing this book.
Yes,
she had 2 children while writing this book, and that's probably why she has that couple in there with the newborn baby.
Yeah.
You gotta write about what you know.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Any other questions?
Let me see. I cannot think of anything right off my brain. Just went.
Oh, I meant out of the reader's guide.
No, they were kind of spoilery, and it's kind of stuff that we've already talked about, kind of like May and Matthew, and then one of them was well, number 10, we already know what it would do. It says, what do you think you would do if faced with the same situation as the characters in The Dreamers?
Oh, well, I think we could scratch that one. I watched a lot of Netflix.
Yeah, I probably can cook anything that's ever been on Chopped or Guys.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing.
I had so much Food Network.
Yeah, that's a good question to ask around the room. What was everyone's go-to thing during quarantine? I was cooking and Netflixing.
I was working. I was handling all of our social media and website stuff.
Oh, that's right.
So I was working and teaching Ruby and being her at-home virtual teacher because she was at home doing all of her schoolwork. But I did yoga. That was my thing. Yoga. Did it every day. I needed it to keep my sanity.
I got into doing really long walks around the neighborhood.
Yeah, with my daughter, they with Bossier Parish, they made everything optional, and I was trying to get my daughter to do the work, and she was doing it a little bit, and she happened to be walking through the living room one day while we were watching the news, and she overheard that everything was optional and it wouldn't affect their grade. And it was like the third week of March, and she looks at me and she's like, yeah, I'm done. And I was like, no, you can't be done. And she's like, I'll do it when I go back to school. And then it kept going on and going on. And she hadn't been to school since I think it's the last week of February, because she does a lot of shooting sports. And she had a competition the week before. Well, the week before the quarantine started was spring break. And the week before that, she'd had competitions. So she hadn't been to school since the end of February. And basically the end of her middle school was it. She wasn't doing anything else. And so I was trying to corral, this teenager that knew that she didn't really have to do anything, and trying to keep my extroverted husband from going insane because he's so used to being around people. And I kind of went the doomsday route. I bought probably the
all
week
the
before.
ramen.
No, I did, and I gave it to one of our coworkers. But the week before they put us under quarantine, something went off in my brain, and I went and bought probably several $100s worth of groceries and supplies to stack in the house. And my husband, he's like, you've lost your mind. Something has turned off. And honestly, I didn't have to go back to the grocery store except for fresh produce until probably June. So
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, so I'm the doomsday dad. I would like to pretend that I'm one of the other people in the story, but even though we have well water and I live by a giant lake, I bought way more gallons of water than I would ever admit anywhere. And I'm literally 20 feet from Cypress Lake, and I could walk down and get water if I needed it. But yeah.
So I like that you said you're the doomsday dad. I'm definitely the newborn baby dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the mom's in the story too, but I feel like I'm more the dad than the mom. He says to the mom at one point in the story, when they realize that the outbreak is bad and that they found out that they're quarantined and that they can't leave, he says something like, I can't do this without you. And she says, you could, because you would have to. Taking care of the baby. And then and then the mom becomes a dreamer. And so it's just the dad and the newborn baby. And he's doing it. He's doing it because he doesn't have a choice. And it's a scary thing to be in. And he had no help and no one that was the other thing about their circumstances, that they had just moved to town. They had just transferred, or they had just taken jobs at that college. And it's the beginning, they're 6 weeks into the fall semester when the outbreak happened. So they've only lived there for about 6 or 7 weeks. And they have a brand new baby.
Wow.
I know. So again, I'm going to keep talking about this couple. I'm scared for them. There's a baby.
Ben and Grace were fantastic. That's the dad.
That's
and the baby.
Is that them? Oh yeah, the Grace's
Yeah.
baby Grace. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're my favorite in the story.
But she was such a good baby.
I know. What a good baby Grace was. All right, y'all. We've probably told you every page of this book in some fashion.
Well, I can't wait to read it.
I know. I hope I haven't ruined it for you. Just enjoy it. It's such a good little story, and I thought I would be worn out by anything related to illness and pandemics and stuff. But this story stands on its own, and this whole aspect of the dreaming is also just really fascinating. So please,
and it's positive
enjoy.
enough and different enough that you're not going to be burnt out and feel like you're reliving everything over again. That it's just a story about people, and it just happens to be something that we understand a little bit more about now than we did a year ago.
Good. I was reading Station 11 right when
oh my
the
gosh.
pandemic hit.
I am so sorry.
Yeah, I had to put that one down for a while.
Yeah, that one goes all the way.
Yeah. We actually read that last year for Books and Brats. And
okay, so you know what? Yeah, you.
Oh yeah,
big
fans of Station 11. Great, excellent book.
The whole world ends. TV series. Yeah.
Her new book just came out, which is those characters, but the pandemic doesn't happen.
Yeah,
really.
Her second book is
The Glass Hotel.
Yeah, The Glass Hotel. I haven't finished reading that. It's not science fiction.
Yeah.
It's a completely different type of story, but very well. It's that book is more about a Ponzi scheme and how the Ponzi scheme affects a bunch of different characters. So it's like an ensemble cast. You have a brother and a sister. You have the billionaire investor guy who's stealing everyone's money. Anyway, that's a really good book too. But I gotta say, I loved Station 11. I loved it, and I really wanted The Glass Hotel to be Station 11, and it's not.
No.
Well, that's good to know.
It's a good book, but you're not going to get anything like Station 11 out of it. It's well written. It is well written.
Yeah.
But
I won't expect any Shakespearean wagons rolling around.
That was so wonderful. Yeah. That was so great.
No comic book, no ominous, 747 parked at the end of the runway.
No cult leaders.
No cult leaders.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's no cult leader in this book. But I'm actually, that's what I'm reading right now is that book.
Oh,
I haven't quite finished it. Yeah, I haven't quite finished it. But yeah, I keep waiting for something to jump out of the bushes in it, but I don't think it will. Well, Kayla, what are we reading next? Do we have a next choice?
No, what do y'all want to read? Y'all choose the next one. Let's do it. We usually let Kirby and Lauren pick, but we haven't seen them in a long time. So
well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have anything. I don't have anything next on my reading list.
I can't pick because I'm reading the book we're talking about right now next. So I'll be
you'll just be one book behind.
Yeah, I'll be one book behind. I'll be waiting for my next book recommendation from you guys. Well, when y'all decide what that book
is, we should choose something and do it for January.
Yeah. We definitely don't want to do December.
Look at January.
Okay. Well, when y'all decide what that
so
book
y'all
is,
can
you'll
have
let
time
me
to finish
know.
The Dreamers.
Right, and you let me know, and that way I'll put that on my to be read list.
Yeah, I don't have anything upcoming. Chris and I want to do a book club meeting on Dune, the whole Dune series, the whole Dune universe.
I was just about to say that. I'm so excited about that movie. I was about to say, let's read Dune for January because that
Maybe we
movie's
should
coming
just go
out,
ahead and
and
choose
I
Dune.
can't even.
Yeah,
Chris wants
Yeah,
to
Dune
do
is
it.
so good.
Oh, has everyone
Yeah.
read Dune?
I've
course
never
not.
read it.
What?
Of
Oh,
course
you're
not,
in
Jackie.
for a
Come
special
on.
treat.
But we'll put
You
it on the
should-
list for January. So we'll say Dune will be our book for January.
Yeah, let's do Dune.
Go for it.
Book 1, or just Dune in general, because there's quite a few books.
I'm gonna try to
I can't read all this.
All right,
Just
yeah,
read the
well-
first one though.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
get into
I
the
think I read
sandworm.
around book 7.
Just read the first 4. No.
Okay.
You sound like a professor, Jackie. Like, is this my assignment? You know, come
Yes,
over and read
it
these 5
is.
chapters tonight.
I'm excited about the new movie. Though who knows when
Oh
it's
my
actually going to
gosh.
come out now that it's been, like every
Right.
other Hollywood film, been pushed back. But there's a new movie, but there's also the who made the first one? Was it Jim Jarmusch?
I don't know, but that first movie, it's a train wreck, but it's one of my favorites.
Not a
It's
train
so
wreck.
bad and so
Okay, you know
good.
what? Save it for
It is a train
January,
wreck.
Kayla. Save it for January.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to read the book and watch the train wreck of a movie.
Yeah.
That way I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
cheat
Well,
if I haven't
that's-
finished the book.
But the new movie is going to be gold. The old one, I can't even tell you how many times I've watched it. I'll talk mess about it, but if it was on right now, I'd watch it again.
Kayla, your taste is all over the place.
It always is, just like me.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for participating in Books and Brats in our discussion of The Dreamers. It was fun. Sorry if I ruined anything for anyone, but hopefully I've convinced you that it's a worthwhile read.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jackie and Kayla, for leading our discussion tonight.
All right. Good night, y'all.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.